All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a special event. Um, Basically, the idea was to celebrate 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. I honestly can't believe that many people are interested in our videos and are interested in digital forensics and information security. So just thank you so much for that many people liking our stuff and willing to stick around and have a look. So today what we're looking at are hardware write blockers. I thought we'd do something a little bit special, and hardware is a little bit difficult to get access to. I know that you tend to see hardware like forensic write blockers in laboratories, but a lot of people just don't have them in their labs, especially if they're not doing like criminal investigations, if they're working in a academic lab or something like that. You might not have access to this hardware stuff. So I reached out to a couple different companies, and one of them was Atolla Technology. They loaned us a piece of hardware we'll talk about. Also, Digital Intelligence loaned us a lot of equipment that we'll talk about. And then after this stream, I'll also release videos on going over the hardware and how to use all the hardware. So please stick around and have a look at that. I hope it's useful for you because, I didn't have access to a lot of this hardware whenever I was studying, and we finally got into a lab and I just kind of got handed a kit and away I had to go. So I hope it's useful for you and interesting. Right. So first I want to thank all of our subscribers. I still can't believe it. Hello, Kevin. And then all of our members and patrons. I really couldn't do this without you guys. Like, everything that I get from members and patrons in terms of contributions, I put back into the community. So, being able to even run this kind of stream is because of members and patrons. So thank you so much. That being said, I'm also going to, like, anything that's possibly made. I've never done super chats before. This is like my first time streaming, second time streaming. If we make anything from super chats, everything that we make will go back to the digital forensics community hardware fund that we started. So a couple people got together and wanted to buy a more expensive piece of hardware to do research on. It was the Oculus headset for doing things in the metaverse. So we are, hello, Idia. Okay, so we are putting a fund together to be able to buy that piece of equipment. And then the idea of the community fund is that once we buy the equipment, we will generate digital forensic data sets and then release the data sets to the community. And then anyone who participated in the fund can, like, borrow the hardware for however long they need to do their research. So I hope this gives access to more hardware for more people to do more research. This is totally based off the awesome work that Josh Hickman is doing with the Android images. So every year, basically, he comes out with a new Android image, and then there's just so much that comes out of it. And I mean, we can do it with Android, we can do it with a lot of other devices as well. So anything we make today will go directly to that fund. And if you want to donate to that fund, I will provide a link shortly. Right. Okay, so two devices that were given, or one device that was given to us by Atolla Technology. They let us borrow the Atolla Insight software and then the DiskSense 2. And then Digital Intelligence let us borrow an Ultra Block kit. So you've probably seen these around. They're in a Pelican case. They're usually very bright yellow, and they are external write blockers. I really like them for their flexibility, especially if you have to go on scene or something like that. And then they also let us borrow a Tableau TX1, which I'd never had the opportunity to use before. And it's also a forensic imager. So we're going to show all of those things today. I'll switch over real quick. Okay. So we have the hardware laid out, ready to go, and this is what we're going to take a look at today. Talk about some of the adapters, talk about just how the hardware works and what you can do with it, basically. So thank you again for those companies letting us borrow that equipment. And then also, Magnet Forensics came in and said, hey, we want to sponsor some prizes. So I said, that sounds awesome. So we also have some giveaways, and Magnet Forensics is going to help us with that. So to get started, we're going to start off with a quiz. And I've never done this live before either, so let's see if it works. One second, let me get this going. It's not a hard quiz. It might be hard to begin, geez. Okay. So we've got the quiz up. If you go to ahaslides.com/DFIR-Sci01, I'll put that in the chat. I'll give people some time to join. /DFIR-Sci01. Do you work with digital forensics in a company? If yes, do you enjoy it? So Christian asked the question, do we work digital forensics in a company? And do we enjoy it? Well, yeah, I enjoy it. I absolutely love working in digital forensics, which is why we're doing this. I especially love the research side of it. Do I do it in a company? I have worked with law enforcement pretty much all over the world. So I'm mostly on the criminal investigation side of things. I have done consulting for different companies. I haven't really worked full-time doing digital forensics for them. It's usually like incident response, or they bring me in for specific occasions, essentially. So for private companies, mostly consulting. For law enforcement, I've worked in a law enforcement lab before, and then now I do my own consulting out of my own lab. Do I enjoy it? Yeah, it's amazing. This is one of the fields that everyone needs all over the world. Like, I had a lot of students, like I used to be a professor in digital forensics as well, and a lot of students would ask me, do you like, is there any jobs basically in digital forensics and information security? And I said, everywhere in the world, like, legislation might change, but digital investigation is the same. So I've worked all over the world. Now I'm working with the United Nations, basically training law enforcement all over the world how to do digital investigations. And there's a need for it everywhere. There's need for capacity everywhere. There's need for more education, more skilled people, which is why I put videos out there for free, because, you know, every country needs digital investigation experts now, especially for things like just disk analysis, phone analysis, things like that. So that was a really, sorry, that was a really long-winded question or answer. But yeah, I've worked with companies, at least consulting. I've worked in criminal investigation labs, and I've always loved it. It's hard work, and you can get into some really, really crazy cases that are kind of emotionally tough. But yeah, I love the work and I love the research. I hope that answers your question. Oh, somebody loved the forensics course. Thank you so much. And then Oof, do I have a favorite case that I've worked on and you can share? Favorite case is tough. We worked on a lot of stuff. A lot of the stuff that I personally work on was around child protection. And like I hated working on the case, let's say. So the content of the case, just the nature of the case was awful. But at the end, I saw someone who was being victimized. Like I saw them stop being victimized, and I know that they're protected now. So like the work is really hard sometimes, depending on, you know, what you're working on, especially if you work on abuse. It's essentially really, really emotionally difficult. But at the end, whenever you know that you've helped somebody and their life is going to be changed for the better after that, I mean, that's a really good feeling. So I can't say there's a specific case. That actually happens quite often. Yeah. What is my favorite tool? You know, I try to cover, if you've been watching the channel, I try to cover a lot of different tools. Most of them are open source and free. And the reason I cover so many tools is because you never really know what you're going to need, right? So I think, I mean, there's a couple go-tos. Like I talk about Autopsy a lot. I use that really often. Volatility, I find myself using quite often these days. But, you know, it really just depends. Like Autopsy, the good thing about Autopsy is, thank you so much, Nico. The good thing about Autopsy is that it's a starting point, right? So from Autopsy, you can get a really quick overview and have the ability to be able to search for things. And then from Autopsy, I usually break out other tools depending on what I need to do at the time, right? So every case is different, and there's not going to be one tool that just does everything perfectly for you. Also, the tool itself, like, how can I say this? In digital forensics, especially if you're working on criminal investigations, you're going to have to validate your tools, which means that I have a tool that I really like to use because I'm very comfortable with it. Well, how do I know that that tool is correct? I'm going to have to test it with some other method. So it could be, I just realized I wasn't even showing the screen. Sorry. Oh, I'm not a normal streamer, guys. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so okay. Yeah, so validation. Whenever you're using a tool, you have tools that kind of are your go-to that you tend to use a lot, but you need to validate those tools. And usually I'm using other tools to do that validation. So I guess my point here is you can have tools that you're comfortable with, but try to be comfortable in as many tools as possible. That way, whenever you have a challenge coming up, you can switch over to other tools very quickly. That's basically what I would say. And then, of course, validation. Cellebrite, you said versus Signal Messenger. Thoughts? Jack, you're talking about Cellebrite and Signal Messenger. They're kind of back and forth with the blog posts. Is that what you're talking about? I thought it was interesting and hilarious. But let me know what else you think about that. Hello, Alexi. How are you? And then Jim, any luck with memory forensics on a case? Yes. In multiple countries, we've actually had once. Really, the trick here is first off, getting first responders that can actually make a memory acquisition. That was probably the biggest challenge, is like whoever's first on the scene. So far, or in a lot of cases, they've been taught to just shut systems down immediately, pull the plug, and take the computer or whatever it is you're looking at. So getting first responders trained up on how to actually do some basic live acquisition was the biggest problem. But whenever we go on scene ourselves and we actually find a system that's on, then yeah, in a lot of cases, I've been able to get a memory acquisition, and then use that in the case. Memory forensics, like I push it so hard because even though it is difficult to get on scene, there's just so much information there. Like, especially if you're doing criminal investigations, the ability to see what the user was doing. Sorry. The ability to see what the user was doing during the last like boot of the computer. If you have RAM, you can just recover so much user activity. And even if it's not user activity, it might be, you know, malware, connections, remote connections coming in. There's just so much interesting, good information coming from a RAM analysis. So I always recommend that people do it. It's difficult to get it, but yeah, we've had good success on a case with RAM analysis. In my case, it helps to establish that the user was aware of different files. Like, so for example, for child exploitation cases, you have to show that the user knew that the content was on there. And with RAM, if you can see that images were loaded and you can even see what program they were using to load those images, then and what time, then all of a sudden you can say, okay, we know that these things were executed on the system. Did anyone else have access to that computer? And if they say, no, I'm the only one with access, well, now you have kind of a connection to a user activity showing that they were at least aware of those images. So anyway, yeah, always try to get RAM. It is super useful for cases. Really, that's a first responder training issue, if we can do that. Okay, what's on the screen? So I have a, let me see if I can move this thing. Okay, so we're going to do a quiz. And if you go to ahaslides.com/DFIR-SCI01, then you can join the quiz. The way that this quiz works, hopefully it's not too difficult. The way this quiz works is whoever answers first gets more points. And then I'm going to take the top 3 people, and then you're going to get basically sticker packs and pins and things like that from D1RScience. Okay. So please go ahead and join, and then we'll go in a second as we answer some questions. Jesse, hello. Did you ever have to parse something manually in Hex, and how did that stand in the final report? Yeah. Okay, so have I ever parsed anything manually? Yeah, I go to the Hex editor a lot. I'm fairly comfortable with a Hex editor. How'd that stand in the final report? No problem. Because I can explain how I'm parsing it and what I'm trying to do. So you wouldn't just say, oh, here's some data in Hex and that tells me the person's guilty. That doesn't make any sense, right? You have to actually show that you parsed the information plus research that shows that this data structure is a certain way, right? So that could be an academic paper. It's better if it's an academic paper, because then you're not relying on your own expertise. You're basically saying these researchers outside have this expertise and they say that this piece of data tells me that something happened in the system. So if you can use the published research, it'll really help back up any type of manual parsing you're doing. But like, think about if you're using a Hex editor, if you're writing your own parsers in Python, for example, using a Hex editor and doing things in Python, it's basically going to be the same thing. Like, you are doing your own research, you're finding out what that data structure is, and then you're trying to extract that information. So as long as you can justify why you think that data structure is like that and show that it's true, then no problem. If you have your own individual research, try to get it published, is what I would say. Can the Hibernate file be used in lieu of a RAM copy? Yes, you can analyze a Hibernate file, and then depending on how it was hibernated, the operating system, things like that, you can get a lot of information back from Hibernate. The problem is that whenever you're doing Hibernate, like whenever you make that file, you're potentially overwriting other hibernation files, right? So you could have actually had kind of 2 copies of RAM, the currently running system plus an older version, and then done some change analysis on both copies to see what happened in the system over time. But if that's the only way that you can get a RAM dump, that's what you have to do. So, yep, you can definitely use Hibernate to get some information. Okay. All right, we have 18 players, so I am just gonna start and we see where we go from here. Okay, now the deal with this, there is a bit of a lag between the time that I'm clicking something on the screen and the time that you guys actually hear it or see it. So watch your screen if you're doing the quiz, and don't just listen for me. Okay. Okay. Oh no. Oh no. I totally messed it up. Sorry about that. Oh, this is what happens. Okay, try number 1, totally failed. Let's try this. If you can tell, I'm not a professional streamer. Sorry about that. Okay, we got 18. Oh, we got 19 coming in. All right, maybe we'll get a couple more. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for the questions. That's great. If you have anything else, just let me know and I'll try to answer as best I can. We'll give it a couple more seconds for people to come in. Yep, Lucas, I'm not sure. Maybe I missed something. Okay, let's go ahead and try this again. Okay. Let's go. So you have a minute to answer. Do I have published research articles? Yep. I do have a couple of them. I will. While you guys are taking the quiz, I will post some links. Let's see. Time's up. Volatility. Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching. Okay. Let's see who the leader is. Oh. He was real fast. Awesome. Okay. Next question. This one's a little bit harder. So in chat, I just posted about the DeFi Hardware Community Hardware Fund, and so what volatility plugin can help get Windows user passwords? So Windows plist handles netstat or hash dump. Hash dump will dump the Windows password hash, and then we can use that hash, try to crack it with something like Hashcat or John the Ripper, and then try to get the password back. PS list will list all of the currently running processes in RAM from your RAM dump, and then handles will list all of the open handles. So for example, if we wanted to get file handles, any programs that are accessing files at the time that we collected RAM, then we can match the program to the file access and then extract those file handles. And then netstat is for network, obviously. Let's see how the leaderboard looks. Oh man, still doing good. Oh. Yeah, cool. Okay. Jesse says no Jeopardy music. Listen, my computer's about to die just running this quiz, so like, please give me a break. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Next time I'll try to get Jeopardy music and sound effects and explosions. Oh no, Newell's sad. Why sad? Ah, okay. So, which Windows registry key can help you find the number of program executions? So, basically, we're looking at user assist. It keeps track of the number of program executions plus focus time and focus count, essentially. So user assist is super handy, and if you're looking at volatility can parse out user assist directly, but anyway, user assist is just a great key. Shellbags is also probably one of my favorite keys. What you can do with shellbags is find out that user was accessing folders and directories, and you can even, with shellbags with some other keys, reconstruct file names inside directories. It's really, really a powerful key. Run MRU anytime you see MRU, it's the most recently used list. You can use MRU lists to reconstruct essentially actions that happen. So especially if you're doing some type of snapshot analysis of what used to be Windows restore points or shadow copies, you can look at MRU lists over time and then try to estimate how many runs happened at a particular time. But anyway, MRU lists are really interesting for investigations, especially powerful with some type of snapshot analysis if you can do that. And then USB store, yeah, that won't really help you with executions, but USB store is also super interesting because we're always interested in external devices being plugged into the system, right? So, okay, let's see. See how the leaderboard's coming out. Man, they're still quick. Jeez. Okay, I think there's one more. Yep. Don't worry, we'll have other quizzes today. We still have a couple prizes up for grabs. For this quiz, we're going to be doing sticker packs, and I'm going to make some like lapel pins and things I have planned. So for the top 3, you'll get a sticker pack. And then Magnet Forensics has supported some prizes as well. So they are supporting coupons for their Magnet Forensics shop. So stay tuned for the other quizzes and we'll have some nice prizes, and then I'll try to do some other things as well. But this one's super hard. Can you research it in 60 seconds? I don't know. Best guess. Oh, nope. So D4 Science, we started in 2008 as Cybercrime Tech. So for those 4 people, that's either a really lucky guess or you've been stalking me for a really long time. I don't really know. So yeah, we still have the blog up. We've been doing stuff for actually a long time. So OSINT, yep. So I thought it was a quick OSINT OSINT question. You can just go to dfer.science, which is our blog, and then just go to the last page, and it's 2008. So so yeah, good job to those 4. Bottom place should get a bonus gift. Bottom place should get a bonus gift. I'll see what I can do. We'll see how that shakes out. Oh man, KP still got it. Nyko coming up. Awesome. Well done, everyone. Okay, so for the top 3, I'm gonna hopefully you put in your correct email address. I'm going to use the email address for the top 3. I'll be emailing you, and then and then yeah, I'll get you information about the sticker packs and get some stuff sent over to you. Jesse, you don't look that old yet. Well, it's dark, so I keep it dark. That way you can't see all the gray coming in over here. Yeah, okay. So, I actually started the blog whenever I started my PhD program at University College Dublin in digital investigation. So, yeah, it's been a long time now that I think about it. All right. Hope that was interesting. Sorry I messed it up the first time. Let me reset this. Okay, and on that note, yeah, basically the reason that we started digital D1st Science in the first place I want to make sure I get those responses. The reason we started digital forensic science or D4 science in the first place is because we were training for Interpol and ECTEG, which is a European training group. And after I would go in and do training for local law enforcement, they would come back and have more questions about how to do some specific task in their investigations. So the whole point of starting the blog and starting specifically the YouTube channel is because I needed a place to be able to show how to do something in the investigation or how to do some task. And I wanted it to be just available to everyone, because if one investigator has that question, a lot of them do. And it turns out that a lot of investigators did have the same question. And then... Three guys should not be included in the quizzes. Okay, maybe that's true. If you win, we'll see how the other quizzes go. They're not technical, so maybe it's an even playing ground. I don't know. We'll see about the who wins the next ones. Right. So basically, from questions that I was getting from investigators all over the world, especially whenever I was working in Central America, just so many questions, and they wanted knowledge, and they also needed to do investigations very inexpensively. So they couldn't necessarily, like, their labs couldn't afford all of these different expensive tools or tool kits. So it's like, how do you investigate real crime and get that evidence into court locally if you have no budget? So that was kind of the basis for everything. How can I do something very inexpensively and as easy as possible? So, like, I mean, I could recommend, for example, a magnet tool that might do the job very, very easily, very, very quickly, but some of those labs just couldn't afford it, you know, especially way far out in the countryside where they have like one person for the entire lab. They just can't afford tools sometimes. And a lot of countries do help with like grants, trying to buy software for laboratories, but eventually those grants dry up and then licenses run out and then they can't use the tool anymore. So I was looking for cheaper alternatives. Sometimes I tried to develop tools myself and then make them open source. Alexi does some amazing work on ALEAP, iLeap, all of the LEAP series stuff, and Jesse's working on that as well. So I mean, those tools are invaluable to local investigators around the world that don't have any support locally and will never get support locally. They rely on those tools to do their entire investigations. So yeah, 2008, yikes. Some people were probably born in 2008, right? How yeah, that's okay, whatever. Anyway, yeah, the whole idea was, how can we help investigators and how can we make access to the tools as cheap as possible, but also access to the knowledge, because you can give people software all day, but or you can tell people go to GitHub, because there's a lot of free, interesting tools on GitHub, but learning how to use GitHub is not easy, especially if you're not a developer, right? So the reason that in most of my videos, if there's a tool on GitHub, I still go through the process of downloading it from GitHub is because some people have just never been exposed to that, right? So we have to expose people and teach them how to get access to these tools, and then teach them how to use the tools. And that's basically where we're coming from and why I started YouTube in the first place. So honestly, I expected the channel to be like 4 investigators around the world and me just saying, hey, how do we investigate this kind of thing? And then I would make a video about it. But I never expected 20,000 people to say, to be interested, honestly. So yeah. People are talking about 2008. Anything can get investigated with free tools. That's a matter of performance. Maybe not some mobiles. Yep, mobile is tricky. Again, look at Alexi's ALEAP, iLeap. Free tools, actually all tools in general. We had a question earlier about using a hex editor. all tools are based on using a hex editor, understanding a data structure, and then making a parser, right? So everyone could do a completely manual investigation, but we also don't have time for that. You have to do what you have to do. So if you don't have a tool that can do it, yeah, you need to go in that deep and start developing your parser, developing research on the data structure. But let's see. Yep, matter of performance. And honestly, like, especially since the Open Source Digital Forensics Conference, open source tools have gotten amazing. It's been going on for a long time now, and we are spoiled basically, because just the level of the free open source tools now is higher than what a commercial product would have been 10 years ago, right? So 10 years ago, we only had a couple options really, and they were kind of all over the place. Now, I think everything is going in the right direction. Commercial tools are amazing. Open source tools are amazing. and now there's actually a community of people who are developing and actively releasing that stuff. And I think that's a huge step in the right direction, because like I said, some people can afford commercial tools, most people can't, or at least on the criminal investigation side. So criminal investigation labs and police is basically what I'm talking about. Dark modes, yeah, I can agree with that. So I mean, just open up the terminal. I always use the terminal. Why dark mode your terminal? That's it. If you know what you're doing, low level is quicker. Yeah. A lot of times, like, if I know exactly what I'm looking for, I don't even bother to do indexing and, you know, carving everything, parsing everything out. You can focus your investigation whenever you have the skill to do it at a very low level. Sometimes, but for an average investigation, I don't think that's true. Like, if I get 10 laptops in and 5 phones in or something like that, I'm gonna be going through probably a triage step, and then doing a full acquisition of everything, and then doing a full processing of everything. So, Professor of the Money Heist. I don't think is that a movie? I don't think I've seen Money Heist. Let's see what we got here. Has anyone seen Money Heist? Is it a thing? Yeah. Money Heist. TV series. Let's see if we can find the professor. Somebody said I looked like the professor from Money Heist. Oh, it's on Netflix. Maybe I can watch it if I still have an account. Okay, so our assignment is to watch Money Heist and see if I'm a professor on Money Heist, I guess. Do you suffer from imposter syndrome, and how to deal with it in order to keep learning? Yeah, really badly. Man, imposter syndrome is just, I don't know, maybe everyone has it. I definitely have it, and like, think of it from this way. Is that the professor on the end there? Sorry, I'm jumping around. Who's the professor? This guy? Well, I'll take that as a compliment. Okay. Imposter syndrome. Yes. Whenever I look at the work, especially the amazing work that people are putting out there on Twitter, I'm just like, man, should I even be here? These people are just amazing at what they do. And consider that I have a PhD in computer science with a focus on automating human reasoning and digital investigation. Like, that's my area. But then I look at what people are putting out there, like Alexi, like Jesse, and I'm just like, this is amazing. How can I even fit in here? So the way that I deal with it is, first off, read what they do, find out what you're actually interested in, and then just start publishing stuff. Like, find a way to help the amazing people. You know what I mean? So I might not be able to do everything that they're doing, but I can definitely support them and at least get their message out there. You know, try to give them as much support as possible. Maybe do some research for them, write blog posts, things like that. That actually helps people. At the end of the day, it's kind of like earlier I was talking about criminal investigations, and the investigation side can be really, really physically and emotionally hard. But then once you see a victim like not being a victim anymore, that's really what makes it worth it. So like a blog post, for example, it's kind of just a blog post, but actually a lot of investigators and researchers come to blog posts, learn how to do some task, and then write tools that they can use in their investigations, and then that also helps justice. So just kind of keep a bigger picture about it, and the work that you're doing, even if you're writing a simple blog post, it can help people. It can help save lives potentially, because we're working on some really dark stuff sometimes, right? So, and these days, you know, there's going to be a lot more cyber attacks. People need to be able to respond to that. So if you have a blog post about how to, you know, do some simple detection, then maybe that's going to help somebody in the future. So just think that there is a bigger picture out there. Just keep producing stuff and see where you can help, and then just try to help there. That's all I can really recommend. How to actually deal with it emotionally, imposter syndrome, I don't know. It's like, it's something you just gotta something everyone has to deal with, I think. Alexi wanted dark mode. Yep. Okay. Talking about XSleep. If you haven't seen XSleep yet, XSleep project is trying to combine all of the iLeap, ALeap into one framework. It's a really interesting framework. I'll try to post a link about that in a second. And then Jonan said, I really like the fast prototyping video. Thank you very much. I wasn't really sure what people would think about it, but that's exactly how I write scripts or any code, is just chop it down into a simple problem first. Like if you're trying to learn the framework, yeah, if you're trying to learn like ALeap, iLeap framework and then write a module on top of it, it gets a little bit complicated. But if you just break your problem down, write a script that solves that problem, and then put that script into ALeap, iLeap, it's much more easy to think about. So I'm glad you liked that video. I wasn't really sure how people liked it. What's your motivation to keep on in the field? Justice and protection, honestly. A lot of people want to do good things. A lot of people want to do good things in the world, and because they don't have, how do I say this? How do I say this somewhat diplomatically? There's a lot of bad people that take advantage of people's situations, and the fact that people don't know certain things or have access to certain resources. And yep, here we go. My motivation to keep going is that, like, anytime you write a blog post or obviously if you're working on a case that directly helps a victim, then there's like a tangible outcome that you can see. That's a really good motivator. Even if the case was difficult, at the end you see the result and you're like, yeah, this changed a life. But then for things like blog posts, like I said, a a surprising number of people, like this channel, a surprising number of people came to the channel and liked the videos. Well, is that because it helped them in some way? So then I'm happy, like it motivates me that I can help those people understand digital forensics a little bit better. But then at the end of the day, they might also be investigators or might be investigators in the future. And then I've helped all of their cases as well, which means that all the victims in their cases potentially I've helped out as well. So I just try to, again, have this bigger kind of mindset about like the work we do in digital forensics really helps people. You might not be working on the case directly, but everything that you can do to improve digital forensics or work on digital forensics is going to help. I'm talking too much, so I need to keep going. Motivation in the field. Yep. Okay. The glasses one. Thank you so much for saying I'm the professor. I'm gonna watch Money Heist, and I hope that's a compliment. I'm working on cryptocurrency forensic tool for my final year project in university. I'm thinking about starting a company and selling it. Have you ever worked with selling forensic software? Yeah, I mean, I've worked with commercial companies that sell forensic software. I haven't done sales myself. Like even putting logos on this stream was a bit odd to me because I've never really done anything like this before. I guess it would be, what's your question about that? What I would do in any case is, if you're going to sell cryptocurrency forensic tools, go talk to law enforcement and see what they think about it. Like, provide demos and provide enough time for people to try the demos, and then provide a lot of information about your tool. That way it's easy for people to access it, understand what it is, and understand how they can use it in their investigations. And then Park Kyung Jae with 10,000 won. Thank you so much, Kyung Jae. Speaking of software, Kyung Jae works with HM Company in South Korea, and we worked together a really long time. He's from the Best of the Best program way back in the day for information security. Awesome guy, awesome company. They also do forensic software processing in the cloud. So go check out HM Company, and I'll try to provide a link for them a little bit later. Okay. Keaton says imposter syndrome is proof that you have space to grow and you're self-aware. I appreciate that. It feels bad, but maybe you're right. And then Jesse, I enable others to understand what they can do, and I think that's a great thing to do. Yep, like just supporting each other. We're all working towards justice in one way or another, no matter what types of cases we work on. So really, that at the end of the day is what it's all about. Lucas says, are you working on investigating malware and lateral movement, or are you only focused on crime? I do a little bit of malware. I don't really do much reverse engineering. I've been wanting to get a little bit more into it, but all of the stuff I end up working on is normally for criminal investigation laboratories. So that's really where my focus is still. That being said, some of those labs are advanced enough to have their own kind of malware investigation section. So I think I dabble, I would say. The longer I work in cyber, the less tools I need. Okay. And then Jesse, you tried to post a link, but I think the link wasn't shared. So if you text it to me, I'll try to post it. Keaton says, videos really helped me. Great. I'm glad they helped you. Thanks for the great 2 videos about autopsy. I have a lot of old videos about autopsy, but I said a lot and I didn't cut it out, so sorry about that. Yeah, if you guys have any specific topics that you want to see, just let me know and I'll try to put it in there and then make a video whenever I can. Just comment on anything you'd like to see. What are your thoughts on specializing in specific fields of DFIR versus more generalized approach? It depends. It really depends on what what your interests are. Some people absolutely love malware reversing, for example. So the problem of malware reversing itself is so interesting to them. That's what they want to focus on for a really long time. Okay. I have the XLeap link up there. This is from Jesse. So definitely go check out XLeap on GitHub. And then I've already done some videos on ALeap and iLeap, so you can go check those out. But XLeap is basically combining all of those different projects together. So specializing in digital forensics or more generalized approach, digital forensics incident response is a huge area in itself. So if you want to be generalized, you can move to a lot of different organizations or organization types. Really the problem, is it a problem? The problem in our field is that you're really working with, military, law enforcement, and then sometimes private sector. Military, law enforcement are very, very closed, and rightly so. So it's hard to get in with them. You have to do a lot of networking. You have to build a lot of trust before you can actually start working with them. And then for private organizations, they usually focus on a specific aspect, like audit, for example, or maybe they have forensic service that does a specialty, like maybe memory analysis or something like that. So I tend to take a more generalized approach because I'm going into a lot of different countries and doing digital forensics for them, or teaching on a lot of different topics to establish laboratories. If you want to travel around the world and do stuff like that and work on cases around the world, you can do it both ways, either be general and then train on general topics around the world, or specialize and then be a consultant and go into each country doing your specialization. There's no right answer. I think I would probably be more on the generalized side. Can you please share any internships for the students, juniors in DFIR? Yes, if you follow me on Twitter, so DFIR Science on Twitter, anytime I see internships or jobs, whether it's advanced or beginner, I always try to retweet them. So if you follow me on Twitter, that's where I see the most interesting jobs posted. LinkedIn also has some jobs posted, but I think there's a lot more on Twitter. So I would just say follow me on Twitter, and then that. If you email me, I can try to find you some specific stuff depending on your country and what you're interested in. Are you planning to make a series on registry forensics? I would love to make a series on registry forensics. It's just about time. So if people are super interested, like the video I made recently about registry forensics did pretty well. So I think the interest is there. I just have to get the time. That's it. Do you guys want to see more on registry forensics? Do you have any recommendations on certifications? Certifications are very tricky. There are some professional level certifications that are interesting. It depends where you're at in your career, I think. So I think I will do a blog post on certifications because it really depends on a lot of factors and what your goals are. So again, whether you want to be a generalist or specialize in something, there's some amazing malware analysis kind of certifications that you can get. Generally, there's some general investigation certifications, and then there's also some e-discovery stuff. So I'll probably do a blog post on that. Yeah, so Jesse is working, so doesn't have time for development. That's another thing to think about. Like, a lot of these open source tools for digital investigators are made by digital investigators. So we basically have day jobs and then produce this stuff at night most of the time. So thank you so much, Jesse, for everything you do, and that whole community. Could you be able to show how to add autopsy modules from GitHub? If not today, maybe create a dedicated video for that, please. Yep, Ruck, I will keep that in mind. I'll make a note about it. And then what I really want to show is how to make your own modules in GitHub. That way you can do it. How often do you come across stuff to do with steganography in real life? A lot of CTFs focus on it. We did a study in Korea. Actually, it was probably about 7 years ago. And the cybercrime investigators in Korea were saying that steganography and anti-forensics, they were kind of grouped together, was about 7% of the time. That was 7 years ago. So yeah, it's possibly there. The problem with it is it's really hard to detect. So how do you know if you detected it? How would you acquire a burnt hard disk drive? I think it was Atolla. So one of the companies that have given us a piece of hardware today, they have a case study on a burnt hard drive. Let me see if we can find it. I've worked with a couple labs that they had burnt hard drives come in, and there was a really interesting case. They did a paper on it in Japan, and they had a hard drive from a black box of a helicopter that went into the sea, and it was basically in the sea for a long time. So the salt water started to corrode the disks, and they were still able to get some data back from obviously a hard disk drive. Okay. This is the manual. I think it was on their blog. Okay. I don't know. I'll try to find it, but Atolla is one of the companies that provided us some hardware today, and then there's also Digital Intelligence. And both of these have some pretty advanced tools for getting back data. One thing that I worked on in UCD in Ireland was a spin stand. Not like that. Yeah, like this. Okay, so a spin stand is basically a piece of equipment, and you can kind of see, if I can zoom in maybe, you can see that there's this spindle, and you can put a disk on that and then try to read directly from the disk once you take the hard drive apart. So basically cleaning up the platters and then using a spin stand and trying to read the data out of it and then reconstruct from that. So that's one way to get data back. If the mechanism in the disk is broken and you only have part of a platter, this is basically how you're going to do it. Mention building labs in different countries. Have you ever done anything for Philippines? Yeah, in the Philippines, we worked quite a lot with investigators. That was a grant through KOICA, which is a Korean organization. We worked with the cybercrime unit in the Philippines and tried to get them kitted up, and then we gave them quite a bit of education on new techniques. But the US was also funding Philippines a lot related to child exploitation investigations. So their lab is, last time we saw it, I visited there, and their lab was getting to be pretty nice, actually. So they definitely have capacity, and now they have at least the equipment that they need. So yeah, Philippines is doing pretty good. Better than 10 years ago, definitely. Please make some videos on email forensics. This is in the pipeline. I've been trying the current Metaspike challenges. Me too. Oh man, I've been working on those, and it seems like there's a lot of structures to cover. Yep, you're probably talking about the MAPI question from last week. Yeah, there's so much to talk about with email forensics. I really want to do a series on it. Again, it's just time, but that's in the pipeline. Do you have any training on Metasploit? Not really. I can basically use Metasploit, but I'm not a hacker. I can hack just enough to get into a system and then investigate it. So I've practiced, like, this is one way that I tried to learn how to practice digital forensics. Use a framework and use like a tutorial. Like I have a book called, well, it's a new book on ethical hacking, for example. So I read stuff like that, and then I practice it on a system. And then after I practice, then I try to take an image and then analyze that image to understand what that type of hacking kind of looks like, if that makes sense. So do I have training on Metasploit? There's better people to teach you Metasploit, I think. If you want to know how to investigate someone who's been hacked with Metasploit, that's more my area. Struggling to create a virtual lab. Wilton, I'll tell you, I've been wanting to make videos on creating a virtual or a virtual lab for a while now, and I'm planning a video series on that one. So that and email forensics are definitely on my list. So those will be coming up soon. Yep. Like a lot of people say build a virtual lab, but they don't necessarily say how or what the best way is. Or they say build a home lab. So the thing I'm going to try to do is teach everyone how to actually make a home lab. That way you can practice and then hopefully publish what you find. And then by publishing that, it looks really good on CVs because people can actually see what you've done. So yeah. Any resources for Android and iOS practice data sets? Yes. Josh Hickman has the best Android, and I think he has an iOS data set. So I'd say the Josh Hickman stuff right now, and what I'm trying to do with the Defer Community Hardware Fund is basically get more of those data sets. Like Josh Hickman quality is essentially what I'm looking for. Okay. Right, so thank you so much for the questions. I really didn't expect that many questions, but there's lots of different ways. Some are better than others. The issue with Defer is all the data you need. Yeah, so, but even with digital forensics data, like now we have the Digital Forensics Corpora, which has a lot of really interesting data in it. If you go through that, analyze everything, it's just huge. And then Josh Hickman's data for research, and then some laboratories are putting out data sets that are also interesting. And then I find there's a lot of network dumps with malicious activities also being released, mostly from certs these days. So the community is really starting to put out a lot more data sets that are interesting for research and learning. And we need to curate those. Okay. Right. So what I'm going to try to do. Okay. CSI Linux is a nice distro to get started, easy to set up. Yep. CSI Linux is nice, as well as Tsurugi Linux, which I've talked about on the channel before. Both of them are free Linux distributions. Actually, a lot of my investigations are done completely on Linux. So some people think it's not practical, but you can absolutely use CSI or Tsurugi for those. I tend to go with Tsurugi because the authors are the original authors of Deft Linux for investigators, and I've been using Deft. I was using Deft for a very long time before, and then Deft kind of got canceled, and then some split off and made Tsurugi, and yeah, that's just my preference. Those are mostly investigators from Italy, and Italy is really interesting because they passed a legislation. I don't know if it's been contested or not, but I think a while ago they passed a legislation that said that all tools used in investigations must be auditable, which means that closed source tools are not allowed in courts, which means they were kind of forced or preferred open source tools, right? Now, a lot of countries don't necessarily have that standard, but Italy was one of the first ones, and then that prompted a lot of open source development from Italy, and Tsurugi is kind of one of those. Yeah, so Jesse says we have a lot of data and don't have a good place to store it yet. This is the problem, and how to go back and actually systematically use all of that data that's created. So I've been trying to scale back on some of the data that I'm using as well. Oh no. Zimmerman's tools now work on Linux. I was also, hopefully, this will be later in the year, but I'm planning on doing a set on that. Tsurugi OS is great. CSI Linux has some great tools in it as well. Yep. And then, okay. All right, so feel free to keep the questions coming. What I'm gonna do is get started on some of this hardware. So first off, we have, I'll try to show this. This is one of the coolest things. I've had a lot of issues with M2 drives. So Digital Intelligence provided the Ultra Block external write blockers. I'm going to release a video about this very soon. I actually have the unboxing videos for each of these devices, so you can see what's actually in the kits in depth, and then I'll show how to actually use all of them. But one of the coolest adapters that I found was for the M2, and basically my M2, like my suspect disk is here, and then this adapter essentially turns it into a normal SATA disk. Okay, it's hard to see, but in the tutorial video I'll make it easier to see. So the idea behind this is we need to be able to image these M2 devices. So they have this little adapter, and I just thought it was awesome. So it comes in a little case. You put the case on. Whoops. You put the case on, and then it basically looks like a normal SATA drive. And then you can image from it, and your disk is protected. Okay. Yep. SIFT. Kane is mostly used actually in the UK. We used it in the Ireland lab, and then I've never used Remnux, but I've used SIFT, I've used Kane, CSI, and Tsurugi. Chins is volunteering for CSI. Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know they had volunteers. Cool. I might have to look that up. Okay. So the idea behind this is, let's go ahead and try to get at least the external drive. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the external disk imager. Okay. Need more space. All right, so what we have here, basically I have my external write blocker. This USB cable is going to my forensic workstation, and then I have SATA connection to our converter for our M2 adapter here. So now, whenever I turn the write blocker on, we should get, first off, write block protection. That way my system cannot write anything to the suspect disk. And then my computer should be able to detect the disk just like a normal disk. So it will actually look like a normal disk from this side, except we cannot write to it. So it'll be a read-only system. And then, yeah, so with these external write blockers, whenever you turn them on, if you get a pop-up that looks like a normal disk being connected to your system, totally normal. You treat it like a normal disk, except we will, except we'll try to image it. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on. So you notice the first light that pops up after power is write block. You definitely want to be checking for that every single time. And then we have the host is detected and SATA detected. And then on my system, I'll switch this over. On my system, I have this folder that popped up because it understood whatever the file system was. So my system automatically mounted the drive. Now, if I try to, for example, write something, let's just go into a terminal. So if I try to write something to the disk, it just says it's a read-only file system. I didn't mount it a special way, like it's just auto-mounted, except it's only detected as read-only. Okay, now I'm going to open up Guymager. And then we have our so our disk is SDA. I used LS block in Linux to be able to see that. This is our mount point that we just saw. Let me double check that. Yeah, 25437. Okay. Okay, so we want SDA, and then we can just do acquire image. Now this is, I'm using Guymager for the imaging in Linux. If you're using, for example, we talked about CSI, Sorugi, Sans Sift, all of them have Guymager installed. It's a pretty quick imager, but the important thing here is that we're connected to the write blocker. Our system was detected as read-only, and then with that adapter, I'm able to image an M2 device. Okay. Whoops. Let's do, I'll put it in home. Okay, click start. Yes. We get an error message because there's a 128 gig disk, but I don't have that much space left, so I'm probably not going to do everything. But it's not necessarily a problem as long as you have compressed images, because the compression will usually get you between like, let's say 25% off to 50% off, depending on how the compression is used. Have you ever experienced cosmic bit flips change the hash of values in your image? No. once we've created images, cosmic bit flips are normally created during transmission, I think. Every time that I had an image come out where the hash value was weird, it was always because of the hardware. So I could always explain it with the hardware. I never have experienced cosmic bit flips. I thought that was more on the transmission side of things. Now that's a really important point. If you are imaging and you are not getting consistent hashes, like I've had some USB sticks that were just trash, but they're the suspect's USB stick, so you have to image it. Every time I imaged the USB stick, I would verify, and the hash would always be different, right? So then you have to explain that. Well, in that case, apparently what was going on with that particular USB stick is that the flash was being overly aggressive about garbage collection. So basically it would always wipe stuff. I don't know, like it was the way that the flash worked that made the USB stick always have a different hash value. So really weird situation. I've had it a couple times, but not very often. So yeah, if you are getting invalid hashes for your images, you have to be able to explain it. Now, what most people do is just re-image, rehash, and see what happens. And then if they get a consistent hash, then they're usually happy with that. If it keeps changing and you can't get a consistent hash, you have to investigate it. There has to be a reason for it. It could be that your device is going bad. It could be the source device is going bad. It could be your destination device is going bad. What you'll see whenever I'm talking about especially the Atolla DiskSense, this device here, is you can the DiskSense and the TX1, you can check smart on your source and destination drives. And with smart, you can kind of tell if your drives are about to go bad. So definitely check the smart readout for all of the disks that you're looking at, including your destinations. That way you know if you should retire them. So everyone's a CSI person. Okay. Are all of these open source? CSI, I believe, is open source. Tsurugi is definitely open source. SandSift it uses open source tools. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So Flare and Rinmux for reverse engineering. That makes sense. Like I said, I'm not really a reverse engineer that much. What model of write blocker supports the M2? So Ruck, this is not the write blocker. This is a adapter. So this, let me zoom in. So this is an adapter for M2. It's not the write blocker itself. So I connected the adapter to the write blocker. So this box here is the write blocker. This is the adapter, and this adapter comes in the Ultra Block kit. Let me get something real quick. They also have these adapters, which is basically PCIe connection. So M2 to PCIe, little PCIe connector goes in the back here. So these adapters are really awesome. One reason that I really like the Digital Intelligence Ultra Block kits, and I recommend them normally for small labs, is because they're very flexible. Like you're not always going to necessarily have an M2 device. Sometimes you're going to have just a normal, even a SATA hard disk drive or maybe an IDE hard disk drive. But with the kits, you can at least have one adapter for devices that you might come in contact with. And for a small lab, having that flexibility is really, really important. Now for bigger labs with more budget, you can get all sorts of adapters and connectors for those things, but
Yeah, usually for small labs, I'm recommending kits and then custom picking the adapters that you're most likely to use. So I really like that, and then I love this little adapter here, and that adapter can actually work with any of the devices because it's just basically converting our M2 drive into a normal SATA connection. So anything that can understand SATA can image it. So. Yep, if you use SATA, you can normal SATA. Okay. Looks like what he's doing. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up with the chat. Do I ever use RStudio to carve files? No. I can understand the reason that you would use RStudio to carve files if you're doing new and experimental ways, because RStudio is basically statistical software. So if you're doing statistical analysis over an image and then trying to carve files that way, and you're trying new methods, then I would consider RStudio, just because of the amazing statistical packages that they have. But once I understood the statistics, I would get it into something a little bit more commercial, I guess. Like, most investigators can run a Python script, but very few investigators can probably put together an RStudio package, get everything they need, and then run it. So I would try to make it as easy as possible. Once I understood what data structures I was carving out, then I would try to replicate that in something like Python, or maybe just make an executable out of it. Yep, so how to connect the NVMe SSD hard drive. Digital Intelligence in the UltraBlock kit, they have an adapter for it. And then it converts it to, I think they have one that's SAS connection, and maybe one for ePCIe or PCIe. So I would go check out their adapters. I don't know of any write blockers or imaging devices that take it directly, but yeah, I would look at their adapters on Digital Intelligence. Which USB drive was that? I don't know which USB drive you're talking about. What's a good way to start learning digital forensics? Like in most of the videos that I produce, I give links to the software that I'm talking about, and then I try to give links to a data set. Download the software, download the data set, and then just explore. One of the best ways to quickly learn is to analyze your own systems, because you already know what your systems should look like. Take an image of your disk, process that image, and then you'll start to find things and say, oh, okay, if I do this thing, then this is here. And then once you kind of have an idea of how your own system is working and some basic investigation skills, then you can move to building your own kind of labs, like getting a virtual machine, doing something, imaging it, and then testing that thing, and then basically doing that process. Make sure you document all of that and then publish it so everyone else can see it too. But that's one of the best ways to learn, is you just gotta start practicing. CTFs are also quite good. A lot of the CTFs I've seen are fairly well done, at least for the basic concepts. So try some CTFs. Kane has built-in software write blocked. Yes, so does Sarugi, and I'm sure CSI does too. Built-in software write blocking is fine, but hardware write blocking is better. like it's very difficult to just make a categorical statement like that, but if I can write block even before I hit the computer, then I don't have to worry about it. So with like Kane, with Tsurugi, they're trying to do write blocking at the kernel level, which is a very low level, but what happens before that, right? So really, really what it comes down to is what's the court going to question? So if you have a really good lawyer and they came in and said, are you sure the disk wasn't written to before your write blocking kicked in? Well, with software, you're not really sure. Like, it would be hard to answer, and you would have to do a lot of testing and prove that you've tested to do that. With hardware write blockers, as long as you're testing your write blocker is working so every so often, whatever your standard procedure is, then you can say, yeah, I used an external hardware write blocker. I know it doesn't do that, and the computer doesn't matter because it's already write blocked before it gets there. So write blocking is partially a court question, right? So what will the court question you on, and how strict will the lawyer be that's questioning you? Now, lucky for us, most lawyers don't know what to question yet. So you're probably not going to get that for a while. But if it ever comes up and you say, I don't know, then there goes your entire case, and possibly even older cases that you had. So better to be safe. T35U. Yeah, I think that's the T35U. Yep. This one is the SATA IDE bridge. They also let me borrow PCIe and USB. Yeah. They look exactly the same, just PCIe and USB. Paladin for imaging is great. Yep, I agree. Sorry, I'm going through. There were quite a few chats, and I'm trying to catch up. If I missed you, I'm sorry about that. Yep, 13 Cubed has some amazing videos for artifacts too. Yeah, 13 Cubed is awesome. They're also on YouTube. If you haven't seen them, go check them out. How to make an image, which one software use for imaging it. So right now, the image that I'm working on, we're connected our M2 suspect disk into a converter for M2 to SAS. SATA connection to the external write blocker, and then write blocker is turned on. You can see the activity light here. We have a blue cable going to our forensic workstation, and then on screen I'm making an image with Geimager. And if you didn't see me hook up the write blocker, basically I can't write any data to the write blocker. That's about it. Okay, so right now I'm using Geimager on Linux. So if you're using CSI Linux, Tsurugi, SIFT, you should be able to use Geimager. It doesn't work for Windows, unfortunately. On Windows, I would probably be using something like Magnet Acquire, FTK Imager. Yeah, I would probably stick to those. Solution for TPM encrypted drives, what to do? Thanks. How do you say it? Gio? Thanks for the difficult question. TPM encrypted drives, basically the TPM is a hardware module on the computer itself that's used to do the encryption of your disk. So if you remove the disk from the hardware, then you no longer have access to the keys. So imaging it is pointless because you just won't be able to get it back. Really, the only thing you can do is image from the suspect drive or from the suspect system itself. And ideally in a live environment, then make a logical image or possibly a live physical image, but basically a live logical image if you can. So if you suspect TPM, which it's happening a lot these days, if you can get the system in a live environment, if there's some type of encryption like BitLocker, then try to make a live logical image. That's what I would say. Like, that'll save you so much, because trying to do it any other way is going to be nasty. Jesse has a Discord community. Also, check out the Digital Forensics Discord community. I will try to put a link there, and I'm running out of space, so I'm going to close this. Digital Forensics Discord community is an awesome resource. There's a lot of digital forensic investigators in there that can answer all sorts of questions. We're also in there. FTK Imager is king. Make sure you get the newer versions because they did have a huge speed increase recently. Where to learn basics of chip-off forensics? Oof, that's really difficult. It is very specialized and you do need some special equipment to do it. You can just try removing chips from old phones to get down taking off a chip without damaging it. But then the second part of that is actually reading data from the chip once you do chip off for memory phone for phone analysis. So chip off, yeah, it's super specialized. If you have some old phones that you can get access to, practice removing the chips, basically with a heat gun. And then hopefully if you can get it to the point where you don't burn up the chips whenever you take them off, then you can trying to get some data off of them, but it's a process. It's really difficult to learn on your own. Yeah, there's no room to mess up with chip off. Yeah, Lucas has a good point. If you're talking about a corporate environment, you want to acquire a disk from your domain, you can set up Active Directory to store recovery keys for BitLocker. That's if you control it. So I was assuming, again, kind of from criminal investigation side, I would get a laptop from a suspect, and if they have BitLocker encryption on, then what do you do? But if you control the environment, yeah, you have a lot more options than that. Jessica Hyde's been doing some amazing work actually for Chromebooks. If you haven't seen Jessica Hyde's Chromebook stuff, and I think there's a lot of stuff posted on Magnet Forensics about Chromebook analysis, you can find her on Twitter. Amazing follow. Any tools for remote forensic imaging acquisition? And free tools. Oof, Ruck with the hard questions. What I will show, because we need to talk about it, is the both the TX1, which is this, and the Atola DiskSense. They both have the ability to save your images not only to a local disk like cloning, but also to a local image to a destination drive, and to remote sources. So if you have a NAS set up, they can both save the image to a NAS. Now, I know what you're asking is, you have remote systems on a corporate network and you want to image them. There's a couple tools I would probably recommend. Velocity, I need to go find it. Oh, I can never remember their name. Sans just did I think a webinar on that. Oh, I just can't remember the name right now. Evimetry from Shats in Australia is really interesting. They got some really good stuff going on, but it's not what I was thinking of. So I'll try to find the link and post it later. F-Secure is good, but they're not the ones I was thinking of either. For lock screen on Windows, the thing that I used the most actually was whenever laptops had FireWire, you could get direct memory access and then use a direct memory access attack to unlock the screens. So when systems had FireWire, it was an amazing time to be an investigator because lock screens didn't matter at all. You could totally get passwords, you could unlock, you could control a lot of stuff. You could even take memory images through FireWire. So I really wish, I don't know, I'm happy we don't have it anymore because it's a huge security risk, but it was a good time, let's say. I haven't used Bash Bunny for it. Some countries will cause the data to be useless for investigations. That's true. If you use hacking tools, depending on your court and your local jurisdiction, it can be an issue. But that's also why FireWire was so nice, because you could basically make a RAM dump, which is acceptable, parse out the RAM dump, and then get the user's password for the login. So that was a good time. Thank you, Jesse, for posting the Discord link. I hope that's the right one for the digital forensics community. What do you think about Passware? Passware is excellent, and I'm pretty sure Digital Intelligence just partnered with Passware. Okay, I just can't find anything I'm looking for now. Jesse also posted his own Discord address. I don't have Discord. I do everything on the Defer Community Discord app, so follow Defer Community, and then I will post everything there. Okay. So next we're going to look at the TX1. I just want to show you the interface. Okay, so on the TX1, you can kind of see. So on the interface, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this. Again, I'm going to make a video about this, so you'll pretty much see something similar later. But it is a touchscreen interface. On the right-hand side is your destination disk. On the left-hand side is your source disk, the suspect's disk. And from the interface, we can do a couple things. First is duplicate. Next is local file acquisition if you have specific files you want. Super interesting about the local file acquisition is you can actually set up keywords and then it will go through and search based on keywords or some file properties, and then image those directly. Next, we have hashing. Based on the acquisition report, we can verify our hashes. Oh, sorry, we have verification. Based on the report, we can verify our data we've collected. After that, we have hashing. And then we have browse if we want to browse files on the source or destination. And then restore if we want to write an image back to the hard drive. Okay, so the idea behind this is fairly simple. First, we need to initialize the drive. So again, on the right hand side, as you're looking at it, these are all not write protected disks. Like, they are destination disks that you can write data to. On the other side, they're all write protected and you cannot write any data to them. First, we need to initialize the disk. So I'll go through that process now. We can click on destinations. I'll try to move this over. We can click on destinations, click the disk we want to initialize, and then we can wipe it, format it. Also check smart so we can see if the disk is actually going bad. So I'm going to format. We can format to exFAT, NTFS, ext4, FAT, or HFS plus. We'll just do exFAT for now. So now I'm formatting the destination disk. Okay, so that's done. View log just to make sure everything's okay. Now we want to duplicate, and I need to choose a source. And the awesome thing, one of the coolest things about the TX1, at the very top you can see this kind of circly arrows, and that is automate the acquisition. So if you turn that on, you can specify a destination location. That could be, for example, your NAS. It could be a very big disk, and then any sources that you plug in after that will be automatically imaged to whatever your destination is. So if you do plug this into network attached storage, you can basically just image all day long, 2 sources at a time, plus I think a USB source, PCIe and IDE. Okay, so the automatic imaging feature is really nice. If you have a bunch of hard drives that you need to go through, basically you can set up all of your imaging, go take some hard drives from additional laptops while you're doing that. The imaging is just automatically running. Whenever they're finished, remove that, and then plug in another one, and away it will go. We're asking which hardware is that? This is the Tableau TX1 from Digital Intelligence. Let's see if I missed anything. Where to buy the equipment I use? How much does it cost? Write blocker. Please send the link. Yep. So actually below the YouTube video, I have where everything comes from. The cost really depends on the accessories that you get. Like if you get the PCIe adapters or the M2 adapters, those are going to cost a little bit more. So every lab has different requirements. So get it for based on your requirements. The one that we're talking about now is the TX1. This is a self-contained forensic imager. So before, if I'm dealing with the external write blocker, I connect this to my forensic workstation, and my forensic workstation does all the imaging. This just write blocks. The TX1 has write blocking built in on the left-hand side, and then destination on the right-hand side, and it's completely self-contained computer. I think it's running some type of Linux. So you don't need to bring your forensic workstation if you're just doing imaging tasks. Yeah, so I recommend the auto imaging feature. It'll help you burn through those disks really quickly. Okay, so let's go ahead and start one. So Okay, so since there's only 2 disks, like one source, one destination, it automatically detected all the settings. All I had to do was click start. Like I said, though, if I was using this in the lab and I had a lot of systems come in, I would set up automation and then just automatically image all those things. So it's going. Now, the interesting thing about these disks, I specifically chose disks that are going bad, both for the source and the destination. So I expect it to take longer because these are almost dead, right? I wanted to give it a challenge. So we'll see how long it takes. And it already says errors encountered on it. Let me see if I can move that up a little bit. You can kind of see it a little bit better, but basically there's a red message here that says errors encountered on the disk because those disks are dead. Like they're having trouble, but it hasn't, it hasn't given up yet. So that's something. You can also set how many times it retries on busted disks. So we'll see. It already encountered errors, so we'll see how that goes. Okay. Zimmerman's tools. Zimmerman's tools are great. If you can support Zimmerman, do. Just amazing the work that he's doing. Lucas, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much for coming. For remote acquisition, it wasn't fresponse. Fresponse is very good, but there's another tool. I just cannot think about it. I'll post it. I'll post it as a community post on YouTube if I can find the links, and I'll try to post all the links we're talking about actually as a community post. Can you discuss offsets of file system? Where was it mounted before, and recommend any book about HFS plus forensics? Oof. So offsets of file systems, where it was mounted before. So on your disk, I'm gonna make a really bad drawing. So if you have a disk, oh no. Then basically, depending on what your the question was, are you making a backup or copy? In this case, we are copying directly to, in this case, we're making an image to our destination drive. So this destination drive, we already formatted it, exFAT, and then the system automatically creates a folder with some naming structure that we've preset, and then makes a disk image, and we are imaging to EX01, which is the newer in-case format, or in-case expert witness format file type. So it basically supports EX1 type, the newer type, and then E01 type, DD, and DMG. So those are the types of images that you can create. So from our source drive, our suspect disk on the left-hand side, we're copying all of the data from the beginning of the end to the disk, and then saving it into an image file on our destination drive. Sorry, that wasn't clear. Okay, so discuss offsets of file systems. So the idea is you have your physical disk, and then you create a partition, right? And the partition can actually be located anywhere, and it can be any size, right? So you might have a partition at the beginning, and then let's say you have some space and you have another partition. that goes the rest of the space. Well, whenever you make these partitions, so this is our partition 1, this is our partition 2. When you make these partitions, because they can be located anywhere, you also have some extra space in between. You can, not always, but many times you do. And this extra space is slack space. And you can still write data into this slack space. It just won't have a pointer necessarily to it. But I can save data in there, and if I know how to find it, I can go find it again later. So he's asking about the offsets of file systems. Whenever you have a partition, after you create a partition, the next thing we tend to do is put a file system on top of the partition. So let's say that this is, I don't know, NTFS file system. Right? So the offsets of the file system depend on the offsets of the partition. Right? Now, things can get a little bit tricky because you can be very flexible in the way you partition disks. And then now we also have some cloud disks, or we have things like RAID, where we're joining physical devices together to kind of make a virtual device and then putting a file system on top of that. So there's a lot of different ways that a disk can be partitioned, and that all has to do with where the offsets are located. So really I would be looking at the partition, and then as soon as you see the partition, you're pretty much going to see the file system directly on top of that if it's formatted with a file system. But there's a lot of gotchas there, but that's basically how it works. Okay. What do you think of PC3000? PC3000 is awesome. If you're doing anything with low-level disk recovery, it's pretty amazing. That being said, the Atolla device that we have here, the DiskSense, now it's too close, but basically this DiskSense device can do quite a few things that the PC3000 can do. So PC3000 was very nice whenever I used it, and I'm sure it's just gotten better over the years, but I was really surprised at how much the DiskSense could do with the PC3000 kind of recovery stuff. So and with DiskSense, you also get imaging and quite a few other utilities that you don't really get with PC3000. So something to think about. I don't know, like they're both awesome tools. That's all I can say. Money Heist. And you guys have so many good TV series to watch that I've never heard of, and I'm like, I need to watch them, but I also need to make more videos. So what to do? Watch them while I'm making videos? Okay. All right. Okay. What we're gonna do is give me 1 second. Try not to make the same mistake as last time. I have another quiz for you. This one is really open source intelligence, so get your investigation ready. Okay, and for this one, the winner of this one gets a $50 coupon to Magnet Forensics' online shop, so you can get something at their shop. $50 coupon. All right. So let's go ahead and try to join, and then we will give away some Magnet Forensics swag. Okay, while you guys are joining, I will be right back. Oof, got coffee. 5 people joined so far. 6. Oh ho ho. Let's see if we can get a couple more. 8. Yeah. So this one is going to be specifically about Digital Intelligence. They're the company that, like I said, let us borrow the TX1 and the Ultra Block kits. So I really appreciate them letting us see it. I thought it would be a good idea, again, since a lot of people just don't have direct access to this hardware. Like whenever I was studying, it would have been really cool to be able to see it. So we'll see how that goes. Give me 1 second. 9 people joined. Go. My computer is dying. All right, we got 11. I think that's probably gonna do. Let's go ahead. Now remember, this one is about open source intelligence about digital investigation, the company, or digital intelligence, I'm sorry, the company. So have a look, make sure you have a browser open so you can do some OSINT. And this one is for, top prize is the $50 gift certificate to Magnet Forensics Shop. So be ready, and we're gonna start in just a second. Okay, and remember there is a lag between the time that I talk and the time that you guys hear the audio, so make sure you're just watching your screen and not trying to listen for me to say start. Otherwise, yeah, otherwise you'll have some issues. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go soon. Oh. I'm pretty curious how people are going to do on this. Oh, Wisconsin, you guys got it. Yeah, amazing. So Wisconsin, if you went to their About Me page, it was basically in there. Oh, Derek, so quick. Next. I hope 60 seconds was enough. If you guys got the first one, probably this one will be easy. Oh, yep. Okay. So Digital Intelligence, founded 1999. Amazingly, I learned about them in 2003. Then we tried to work, like our lab got equipment from them in I think it was around 2006 or 2007. So yeah, quite a while ago. They've been around for a long time. And actually, like, even now, whenever I go into most criminal investigation labs, I still see their equipment as kind of the primary equipment that most investigators use. So very popular. Oh, Derek. Oh, who got knocked out? JB. But Jersey came up. Nico came up. Oh ho ho. It's a close one. All right. So this question, if you ask an investigator what forensic workstation they want, they'll usually give you this answer. So, and the TX1 is not technically a forensic workstation, it's just a forensic imager. But they have a special forensic workstation that's specially custom built, basically with a write blocker and kind of like these external write blockers that we've been looking at today. They have a built-in write blocking system directly into a bay, and then they also have the ability to like swap out. And they also have the ability to swap out drives, so they're very handy for investigators. Oh yeah, most people got it. Nice. Hal is the evil computer from Space Odyssey. Hal is yeah. Someone's like, I want it to be Hal. Okay. So AHA Slides is nice, very cool for online class assessment. Yeah, it's pretty nice. A little bit expensive for a year license, but But yeah, I like it because people can join. There's a couple other game sites that are like that, but this is the only one that I could find for slides. So yeah, I'm glad you like it. And then yeah, the answer was Fred. So a lot of investigators, if they're asking for a Fred, it's basically the digital intelligence forensic workstation that's specifically designed for forensics. They also have a lot of like back-end server stuff, like high performance computing for storing your images, and then cluster-based processing and stuff. They just have a ton of hardware-based stuff. So Digital Intelligence is a really good company. Derek again. I hope Derek isn't from Digital Intelligence. Maybe I should have checked that. Like maybe it's, you know, the CEO is Derek saying, yeah, I know these answers. So yeah, Derek, if you're CEO, we'll talk. Jersey and Nyko still. Okay. One last question. This is for all the bananas. Ultra block. Okay. Yep. So everyone got it. And that's the ultra block is actually what we were looking at here. So this device is from Digital Intelligence. It's their ultra block, and specifically the ultra block to USB. Okay. Oof, Nico, you almost got it. Derek is the man. There you go. So Derek, you just won a $50 coupon. Last question froze. Had to. Oh, Nico. So Derek, $50 coupon for Magnet Forensics shop. I will be emailing you. Hopefully you put in the right email, and then we'll get that over to you as soon as possible. Let me make a note. We had a question come in, so thanks everyone for playing. That was about Digital Intelligence. Again, they let us borrow this equipment today, so thank you so much, Digital Intelligence, for just letting us learn more about hardware, honestly. That was really the whole point. And the sparklers look great, but my computer's dying, so come on. Let's move back over here. Oh, I got stumped from the prize. Don't worry, we have one more quiz coming up, so another chance to win another $50 coupon for Magnet Forensics. So if you couldn't join last time, or like you said, if the last question said time's up or something like that, just hold on and we'll have another one. And always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Okay. Last question froze on me. Sorry about that. Okay. We also had another question come in. What do you think the best skills in DeFi are, and what do you think the challenges in this field in the next 10 years? Do we need to prepare for encrypted and useless data? Thank you again. Oh man, now my browser's freaking out. Encrypted and useless data, like encryption has been steadily increasing anyway for the past 10 years. So am I really worried about encryption in the future? Not so much. Every country kind of has a different strategy. Europe as a whole seems to be going in the direction of, like, Europe tends to be more privacy focused anyway. So Europe knows encryption is coming, and the response is helping investigators be able to crack the encryption. So not necessarily building backdoors in, but like you get a laptop, it's encrypted. How can the investigator actually get access to that data? That tends to be Europe's stance. And I'm working with a group called ECTEG. They are the European, one of the main European training groups for law enforcement. You can find them at ecteg.eu. Whoops. ecteg.eu. European Cybercrime Training and Education Group. This group is awesome, and they basically, everyone there loves open source software. They love security, but they're also law enforcement, so they know kind of the trade-off between security and accessibility. So this is a great group. If you are law enforcement, especially if you're from Europe, definitely start working with ECTEG. They're doing some amazing stuff. Their focus is more on accepting that encryption is going to be a part of life, and then kitting out investigators with the ability to actually break that encryption if they need to. Other approaches are like building backdoors into encryption, or mandating that companies put backdoors in. So for example, Australia had some very controversial legislation about putting backdoors in and giving access to keys and things like that. It's not usually a good idea. Like, I understand where they're coming from. I work on child exploitation cases myself, so I understand the desire to want full access to all that data, but it's just so easily abused. So it's a very fine line whenever you're talking about encryption, and I think ECTEG's stance is a good stance to have. So do I think that encrypted data is going to be useless in the future? Like, we're already there for encrypted data. I don't think it's going to be any more useless than before. A lot more things are going to cloud. So being able to access cloud data actually helps us in the encryption department, because if you have a locally encrypted disk, but all your data is backed up on the cloud, well, now you can actually request the cloud service provider to give you the data from the service provider. So you can kind of bypass encryption that way. So I don't necessarily see it as a huge problem. In the next 10 years, oh, it's so difficult. Like, mobile devices and embedded devices are hitting right now. And for digital forensic investigators in the criminal investigation space, embedded devices are going to be a huge thing to deal with. And a lot of labs aren't kitted out for embedded investigations. That's why the Chromebook analysis stuff is so amazing, because it's a weird device that we're going to start seeing a lot more of. There's also kind of atomic computing, and that can have some implications for digital investigations. If you're talking about incident response, for attack and defense, artificial intelligence is going to be a lot more of a thing. So, those William Gibson novels about the artificial intelligence that basically do all the attack and defense against each other, that is coming in the next 10 years. Like, it's already kind of started, but it's really going to be advanced in the next 10 years. So for incident response, we're going to see a lot more in terms of in terms of AI kind of dominating everything. Read William Gibson. That's all I can say, and you'll kind of have an idea of the next 10 years for incident response. For digital investigators, in 10 years, we're still going to have embedded devices, kind of like phones. And that's really going to be digital investigators' main focus. Corporate laptops and things like that, that's still going to be around. So I don't see a lot changing, just the way we work. Microsoft does have kind of interesting stance now. New versions of Microsoft Professional, Windows Professional, are going to require an online account. So as Microsoft makes everything an online service, a lot of the data that we're looking at is going to also migrate to cloud services. So that's something to think about or look forward to in the next few years. We'll see how that works out. I think a lot of people might switch over to Linux finally, but we'll see. Can you make image with Blocks Writer, make one-to-one sector copy? Yeah, you can do cloning with not with the external blockers like this one, but you can do cloning. With the TX1 disk to disk, and also the Atolla DiskSense 2. Yep. So you can do cloning to another disk. Hello, Hyder. Can you also share simple images, disk and mobile, that are available for practice? Yep. On all of the videos that I talk about, I try to link to a data source that you can practice with. I would also recommend, for example, for Android, you can't really do any better than Josh Hickman. Goes by Binary Hick. And Android 10. So the binaryhick.blog, and then he posts just amazing stuff constantly. He is, I believe, a police officer. I don't know if he's, I think he's a local police officer. Just doing some amazing stuff. I don't think he's FBI, but anyway, amazing work and amazing data sets to practice with. And then on all the videos that I do, like I said, I try to post links to everything. So if you watch a video of mine, just go below where the description is. Usually underneath like the times of everything, I'll have a links section, and then I try to put data sources that are digital resources there. Okay. All right. So next, what we're going to do is set up a DiskSense, and then I'll try to show you, if I can, I'll try to show you the Atolla Insight software. So 1 second. Magnet User Summit CTF. Magnet actually does quite a few. Magnet and Cellebrite both do CTFs quite often at their user summit or yeah, just CTFs constantly, and then they are releasing data sets that are usually like super advanced. So you can use them not only for the CTF, but also to practice on. And yeah, Magnet and Celebrite both come up with a lot of really interesting stuff. Yep. And then you usually get, like it says, the 30-day licenses. Okay, so what we're seeing now is the Atolla Technology DiskSense 2. It has all these cables coming out, so basically you can have 3 sources, 3 destinations at the same time. And then the DiskSense hardware works with the Atolla Insight software, so I need to boot up my virtual machine. And that's probably going to kill my system, so we'll see if this even works. If I just shut off immediately, you know I've crashed. Jessica Hyde's working on the images now for the next Magnet CTF, or she does all of them? I mean, she does amazing work. Is she still working on the images? All right, so with the DiskSense on, I'll show you the side. So with the DiskSense, it's set up pretty much the same way. On the right-hand side, if it's facing towards you, on the right-hand side, if it's facing towards you, that is the destination port, and it's not write protected. On the left-hand side, if the LEDs are facing towards you, then that is the source port, and it is write protected. You can toggle write protection with a little switch here. If this green light is on, then write protection is enabled. Along with the 3 SATA connectors there, they also have a connector for IDE using a USB-C cable. Okay. On the back, they have 2 ports for one port for a USB source and 1 port for a USB target. And then they also have 2 network cards. I have 1 network card connected in the back with a yellow cable coming out of the back, and that is connected directly to my forensic workstation. And then that allows you to basically save the images directly onto your forensic workstation instead of saving them to a destination drive. So we'll see how that works here in a second once I get booted. But I can tell you it's super slow, and my CPU is like, what are you doing today? So we'll see. We'll see how this works. Unfortunately, Atolla Insight does not work for the Insight software doesn't work for Linux, or I don't think they have a Mac OS version. Only Windows. So that stinks. But the software and the hardware is just amazing. So I will boot up into a virtual machine for it. Okay, so I have my forensic workstation, and whenever you're booting up, you do need a network connection. Once this loads, with the network connection, I can show you, but basically you need to give one network card a static IP address in the 192.168.0 range. And if you are using, like if you're on another network like 10.0.0.0 network, or I don't think they have a 172. I think it's just 192.168.0 or 10.0.0. They have a static IP address set. So if you use those address ranges for your internal network, you might have some conflicts on the way that it's detected. They do include basically a USB to RJ45 network adapter, so you can connect it directly to your forensic workstation. I already had one. But you can also put it on your main network. And then once it's detected, then you need to register it. And I have a video that'll come out soon about how to register it, the Insight software, and then it will put a license on the actual DiskSense 2 hardware. So then you can actually move the DiskSense 2 around to different workstations, and you don't have to license each workstation. It's licensed by the DiskSense hardware. So I just double clicked on it. It's now looking for the DiskSense 2 on the network, and then it's going to be super slow because my system, not because of the software. While it's loading up, yeah. Usually this literally took 2 seconds, but my system really doesn't like streaming at the same time as a virtual machine. Right, so you can see that with the DiskSense, I have connected, we have 3 SATA targets on the back. I've connected one of them, basically just like with the TX1. I have one source, the source is write blocked, the destination is not, and then I have a connection to my forensic workstation, and then we use the Insight Forensic software to control it and be able to do a lot of different features with the device. I think probably the worst thing about it is that actually that's not true. I was about to say the worst thing about it is that you definitely have to connect it to your forensic workstation, but on the back it does have a VGA connection and USB ports. So you could potentially plug in a monitor and a keyboard and then interact with the system that way. So it could be completely self-contained, but I actually didn't think of that until now, so I haven't tried it yet. So yeah, maybe that's what I should do next. So first you need to identify a device. Basically, whenever you plug something in, it's not going to power the device on automatically. So you need to identify, and it'll power on source and destination devices, and then try to what they call identify them. Okay, so we can see that our Samsung source device was detected. So we can add some extra information now, like our case number. I've already added this source, so the case number was already selected. But from my forensic workstation, I can now attach files and things like that. And I can start to do different diagnostics, for example, from the source disk. The only thing I really do, because I don't want to interact with the disk very much, is view smart. And smart is going to tell me if the disk is likely to go bad. So if I have some fails basically in smart, then I know there's some problems. So this disk looks not great, for example. So something to consider. This device might go bad while I'm imaging, so I would just basically record smart and then that's all I would do with the suspect disk. So you can do media scans, you can do automatic checkups, all of those things. I try not to interact with the suspect disk unless I absolutely have to, except for Smart to figure out what the situation is. Under home. Okay, so under home, under imaging, sorry, we can create a new session. Insight is a little bit interesting because they have each of the sources and you deal with each of the sources individually. Let me connect another source so you can see what I'm talking about. So whatever source is expanded is the source that you're working on, essentially. Let's give it a second to... So now we've connected a second source. So you can see that the source 2 has been expanded and then source 1 kind of shrunk back down. And then if I click on source 1, I get the new options menu. So don't get confused about which source you're on. Whatever is expanded is your current working source, even if this kind of area doesn't really change. So let's go ahead and select imaging. I'm going to create a new session. We've already seen that disk before, is why they had some statistics there. And then I have one target set up, so it did detect my target disk. If I just select the target disk, then it will do a clone. So basically, block by block, bit by bit, writing from the source to the destination. If I want to create an image, then we can either do create an image file, and an image will be created on my forensic workstation, or I can create image file on target, and then it will create an image file on our target disk. So I don't really know why, but cloning seems to be their default their default situation. But what I want to do is create an image file on the target, because I already have this this target created, and I've already made this image. Let's see if I can add it. Okay, so now I've created a new image location on our target, our destination disk, and then the image location shows up as the target device, right? So I click select. Okay, so now we have image on our target shows up as a device. And then on our source, we need to say what we want to image. You can say all sectors, which is most likely what you're going to do, or you can specify custom if you're doing like an advanced shop and you don't want to get everything. All available heads. Probably what you'll change more than anything are these presets. We can show settings. And then this is where you set up your hash types, how you want to hash, your segment sizes, how you want to handle errors, so you can completely customize your error handling. Miscellaneous is pretty interesting. I usually power down the source when I'm done. And then artifacts, while you're imaging, Forensic Insight, or basically the imager, will try to analyze, or can try to analyze, the data stream. So if you've ever used bulk extractor, kind of the same idea. I think it actually probably is using bulk extractor. So it's going through and then analyzing data from your stream, and then afterwards you get this report about what was in the stream. So it's kind of like doing your processing while you're doing your imaging, and it's a really fast way to kind of get a jump start on your investigation. Okay, so you can also set up keywords that you want to search for, regular expressions. If we had keyword lists, that's where we could add all that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hide settings. And then enable email status notification. So if I wanted to, if I was connected to the internet, we can start imaging, and then I'll get an email whenever it's completed or if it errors out. Start imaging. Okay, so I've already started that one, so let's go ahead and change the imaging type. Again, super slow because of my computer, not because of the software. Okay, now it's starting imaging, and like I said, I already had one started before, so it's basically picking up on what it already knew about that. I didn't even know it would do that feature. Super nice. And then once we validate afterwards, we can make sure that that's okay. So that's extra cool, actually. Imaging percentage, and then if you look at the destination, it'll also say where it's imaging to and how much. So we have 2 devices that we're looking at, and then this one's set to destination. All right. On the device itself, we now have target 1, or source 1, sorry, showing activity, and then we're writing to target 1, and it's all controlled from the software. So now we can just let that run and start to work with another disk. Now, imaging is one thing. Like, you definitely could get this and then try to image a bunch of disks at the same time. But like we talked about with PC3000, there's just so much more to Atolla Insight software, and a lot of that kind of overlaps with PC3000 type stuff. So let's go into, for example, you could do file recovery. You can do file system level analysis, at least a basic analysis using this software. It can parse out and carve out a lot of that information. File recovery, scan for partitions, and then look through the file directory if there was a partition there. So the file recovery is pretty powerful, very interesting. Artifact finder, set up what your artifacts look like, what you're interested in. You can customize, again, your filters, looking for URLs, phone numbers, I think are the US standards. You can basically configure all of that here. Most people will probably recognize that if you've ever used Autopsy. We kind of look for the same thing, and then you have to set up your keyword lists, but you can just do that while you're imaging, so it'll save a lot of time. And then there's a lot of like very low level sector analysis that you can do. So you can give a CSV file of sectors, and then it will pull out all of the files that are allocated to those sectors. So some really interesting tools here. You do have to have the source device, then you have to have the sector list in a CSV file, but then it will try to get out both the file and metadata information based on the sectors. Really, really handy. They also have a scripting section. And the scripting section is super interesting to me because I've been wanting, there's some cases where I want to do ATA commands, and you can script basically every level of analysis that Atolla Insight supports, which could be file level, physical disk level, ATA commands, like the whole spectrum of disks. You can script any level. And I think that's where really the power is here. So here's just a script for partition table detection. Not totally interesting because it's relatively easy to see the partition tables or what type it is, but just the power behind the scripting engine is huge. They also have all commands that they offer, and that's where I found out about the ATA commands. And then they have a cheat sheet for doing scripting, and the scripting language looks relatively straightforward. So I think the scripting thing is probably one of the most interesting features about all of this, and that's saying a lot. We have the ability to do hashing, both on targets and destination and files, and then verify segmented hashes depending on how you've made the image. And then probably one of the most interesting things are the device utilities, and this is where we start getting in some very low level or research oriented functionality. So for example, we have the disk editor, where we can basically get a hex editor and start editing the disk directly, if my computer will bring it up. Okay, so we can read the sectors on the disk and then try to modify them directly if we wanted to. I mean, that's very low level functionality. Fill or erase, so this is basically wiping, except you can customize how you're doing your fills. And yeah, you can do this other ways, but it's nice that it's just in there. Like if you have a bunch of disks that you need to wipe really quickly, you could just set this up click it, go. SSD trim for your destination disks. If you want to make them go faster, whenever you're wiping them, you can do SSD trim. Write from file is basically, the ability to just save the data from an image that you already have into a disk. Compare two disks, and let's see if there's anything. Dealing with host protected area, both detection and removal, or putting back on if you need to. Security features for the disks, like password manager, locking, unlocking the device. We can also recover disk level passwords in some cases. Media recovery, very flexible tools to do all sorts of media related recovery. And then one of the most interesting for me was the generate bad sectors. You can say where you want to generate the bad sectors, and then it will it'll try to create bad sectors on a disk that you can then fix later. So I spent a long time trying to collect disks that likely had bad sectors. That way I could test these devices and see if they would actually work with errors. And then I found out that Forensic Atola Insight just lets you create them anyway. So I didn't actually need to buy specialty disks, but whatever. So for research, especially low-level disk research, just awesome tool, really interesting. You can set up a lot of interesting use cases with this. So it's way more than just an imager. We can clone, we can image to a disk like we would expect, but we can also do data recovery, low-level disk recovery, low-level disk analysis. And then imaging, again, I didn't show it, but we can do session. If I create an image file without creating an image file on target, then I can image directly over our 1 gig network connection directly to my forensic workstation, and then save the image file as an IMG on my system. The only thing that, I guess the only problem I have with it is that it does want to save it as an IMG uncompressed. So you don't have the option for like expert witness format or AFF4 or something like that, which I wish they had, but you have your physical images brought in, and then you can re-encapsulate them in a container if you needed to. So that's probably one of the main limitations that I found, but for the amount of features you're getting out of this, especially if you're doing low-level disk analysis, just awesome. Okay. What can you say about Grayshift? Not a lot. They're great. I've seen their stuff a couple times, and I've used it. I can't even say that I directly used it. I watched while other people used it. They're really hard to get access to unless you're already in a lab that uses it. So they're doing some amazing work. I wish they were more open. That's all I can really say. For law enforcement, it's an invaluable tool, but you also pay the price. So a lot of the labs that I work with, there's no way they can ever afford to use Grayshift ever. That's just kind of the nature of it. So if you can afford it, just amazing. If you can't afford it, yeah. If you can't afford it, then yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna leave that running, and it is 11:22, so we're almost an hour over what I even expected we would do. If I leave this virtual machine up, we're not going to be able to run the quiz. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. Okay, so that was the Atolla Insight forensic software, and then working with the DiskSense 2. Really interesting combination, very fast imaging, but really more than the imaging, just low-level disk analysis. It's awesome. Yes. Okay, I'm going to take down this VM before my system overheats. And then we will do one more quiz, which is for another Magnet Forensics $50 certificate. Can't even shut down quickly. Jeez. All right, we'll try this. Okay, so the QR code is up. Please join in ahaslides.com, defer sci ATO. And yeah, this one is for another Magnet coupon to the Magnet shop. Thank you very much, Magnet, for sponsoring some prizes. It's great to work with Magnet. Really awesome company. They're always putting a lot of stuff out for the community. It's just great. Okay, we got a couple of people joining, so I'll let that run a little bit. If you guys have any questions, put it down below. Couple more people coming in. Yep, so thanks for everyone coming today. And like I said, you know, I never expected whenever we posted our first videos that there'd be such an interest in digital forensics from all over the world. I mean, we have people, like I said, joining today from India, I saw, but really I've seen investigators and students from everywhere. So it's just really amazing that this field is growing. It's definitely a necessity, and even if countries don't really have the infrastructure set up yet, it's coming. Like, there's a huge need for people to be able to analyze computers, phones, eventually embedded devices. So I'm just amazed at how much it's grown. I never expected 20,000 people to like our channel and like our content. So if you guys do have any specific topics that you want to see, like so far today, I have more people want email forensics, Windows memory analysis. I need to check back on my notes what I was saying, but basically memory forensics, registry analysis are two of the big ones that people talked about. If you have any of those recommendations, just let me know, and it might take a while for me to get to them, but I will absolutely try to make try to answer the questions that you guys have. No problem. And on any of the videos, if you comment down below, I try to check the comments. Actually, that being said, commenting on YouTube videos I can see easily, YouTube lets me, but then replies to those comments are a little bit harder to see. So if you have a question, make a direct comment, don't reply, if that makes sense. It's just easier to find for me. I don't know why they set it up like that. Yeah, so just let me know. Okay, so we got 13 people in here, about ready to go. If anyone else wants to join, oh no, 12, okay, 13. Okay, I'll give it a second to catch up and then we will go. Okay, so this one, again, it's another open source intelligence one. We're talking about Atolla technology. So you might want to have a browser open, be able to search for some stuff. And this is for a magnet shop coupon for $50. Stack memory analysis. How do I say your name? Vinay? Vinay? Vinay, you're killing me here. Like, stack memory analysis is pretty complicated, but yeah, I will totally try. I'm gonna put that in my notes. Okay. Yep. So any topics like that, just let me know, and I will try to get to it as quickly as I can. Awesome. Okay. So we got 13 people. Let's go ahead and start this quiz. Remember, there is a lag between the time that you hear me and the time that the quiz is going on. So with the quiz, watch your phone or your computer, whatever you're on, and don't listen to me, if that makes sense. Okay, getting ready to start. And of course, I had a typo in that one. Ugh. Oh, sorry, Vinay. I already started. Oh man. So when was Atolla Technology funded? Pretend I didn't make that typo. 2003. Yep. So that's on their website. They're actually fairly young. So they've done a lot of really great work in a short time. And then I also have a question coming in. Have you worked with the PC3000? Thanks. Yes, I have worked with the PC3000, again, for low-level disk analysis. I don't think there's anything better. That being said, the Atolla Insight with the disk sense comes really close. So just look at the features of both of them, and then depending on what your lab does, if they are more of a hardware lab, then you'd really have to consider both of them side by side. I think some PC3000 can do some things that Atolla can't, but yeah, it just depends. Aha. Okay, so we got a tie for the top. Actually, we got a tie for the top 3 places, right? There's only one place for the magnet certificate, so top one gets it. So speed is really important. Okay. Ooh, this is gonna be spicy. Canada. So Atolla Technology HQ is located in Canada. They have people all over the world though, but they are Canadian. So they even have a little fancy Canadian flag on their on their packaging. Okay, let's see. Let's see who we got. Oh, JB. Wow. Pulling it out like it must have been 1 second difference. That's amazing. So JB got the quick win there. Okay. Starting the next one. This question was a little bit confusing to me because it's all packaged together. So got 11 responses. Software. Oh man. Yep. So it is a little bit confusing. Atolla Insight is the software, and then the hardware that we're looking at is the DiskSense 2. So yeah. So this let me see if I can bring it up again. I mean, this was honestly a little bit confusing to me, but basically this piece of hardware that we're connecting the disks to, this is the DiskSense 2, and then the software that we're using to control that is Atolla Insight. So yeah, I knew it was confusing for me at first, but I yeah, I'm surprised at this result anyway. Oh, Jersey. So there's one more. It's anyone's game. One more. Let's see what happens. Devin with the sad face. Oh, Frederick with the sad face. Oh no. DiskSense. Oh yeah. So Unifying Vibe says questions freezing. So actually people said that on the last one too. I'm sorry about that. I need to check it. All I can say is, like, is it in your browser? If so, it could be something with AHA Slides. So yeah, that's the problem with the one that you have to answer quickly. So I'll try to find a better solution for it next time. Okay, so the name of the Atolla hardware we're using today, again, this piece of hardware here. is the DiskSense, and this is specifically the DiskSense 2. So, yep, that's what we're looking at. So what's the turnout? Jersey, 380 points, just amazing job. Good open source intelligence skills. So great job on that. I'll make a note. Yep. Okay. Yep. So awesome job, everyone. I hope that was funny. I thought about making it more about, you know, digital forensic kind of quiz, but I didn't know how serious to be about it. So I'm like, let's learn about these companies that are doing some great work. Like I said, in terms of hardware, it is difficult to get access to hardware, and really these companies are some of the best hardware companies that you can come across. So most people, or at least most criminal investigation labs, know about digital intelligence and their FREDs and their external write blockers. Atolla Technology has been making some huge waves about their fast imagers, and then, like I said, it's almost a competitor with PC 3000. So something to think about. So that's really it. If you guys have questions, let me know. I am going to be posting videos about device unboxing, so you can see what comes in like a standard kit. And then I will post videos about how to use each of the pieces of hardware plus some adapters. So hopefully that at least gives you, like, if you start working in a lab, or if you're developing a small lab, like I develop small labs all over the world, we really need to know, like, what is worth investing in, because every lab has a different requirement, right? So we need to think about the best way to spend the limited money that we have, honestly. And you do need some hardware. But for example, do we need an entire expensive kit, or can we just get by with, you know, a couple adapters and maybe 1 or 2 write blockers? Can we just use the software write blockers and then just buy a hardware adapter for M2 devices, for example? Like, maybe that's an option for us, and then we can scale up as we need to. So what I really wanted to show today is there's flexible options all around the line. The more expensive devices do a lot more things, and if your lab is focused on like low-level disk analysis, maybe the DiskSense is the first one that makes sense for you. If you're only imaging laptop hard drives once or twice a week, maybe the external ultra blocks are going to be what's right for you. So there are options out there, and we just need to get access to the hardware to know what to look for, basically. So don't feel like you're stuck with one device. Get what is best for your lab. If you need to, and start slowly. That's what I do, and that's what I tell people to do. What makes imaging process fast? Can we implement parallel computing for imaging analysis process by ourselves? So yeah, what makes imaging process fast? It's really down to understanding your bottlenecks. So you can see, let me switch over. So like on this, we have a source. We have a source and a destination, right? Well, if my source is like SATA and my destination is USB 2, then the USB 2 is going to be my bottleneck, and it's going to make everything much, much slower. So with imaging, especially hardware imaging, you want to make sure that you understand, you optimize each segment that is in the imaging process. That way you can get the most throughput, and that's usually limited by hardware. So you always want to choose the fastest connection speed you possibly can for each segment that you're imaging at. That's one of the biggest things that you can do right now to increase your speeds, is make sure that you do that. And then parallel computing, well, yeah, like the basic idea behind the TX1 and the DiskSense is more sources, more destinations. So there is a hardware limitation. I don't think you're going to get much above 3 3 or 4 sources. Atolla has another device that can take a lot more sources, but I mean, eventually there's going to be a hardware limitation on how many sources and destinations you can physically get at the same time, and then you just have to buy another device, for example. If you set it up on a server and then image everything from the server, it's the same concept. So yeah. Unfortunately, we're limited by hardware. Now, that being said, a lot of stuff is going to come from cloud. So from cloud investigations, then parallel processing can make a lot more sense. Yep. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming. Cheers to 20K. Thank you so much. I'm totally shocked. You can use the Zoom duplicator. I've never actually used one, but as long as it supports USB, then it will. Oh, Ultra Dock. Okay. The Zoom duplicator with the Ultra Dock. Yeah, I mean the Ultra Dock will take anything in, and then it will write block at the Ultra Dock level. So if you're connecting the Zoom duplicator by USB, then the Ultra Dock will be write blocking that. But I need to look. Didn't Zoom have write block feature? I don't know. But if you connect to Zoom, if you connect anything to an Ultra Dock, it's going to be write blocked at the Ultra Dock level. You don't need to double stack write blockers necessarily. I do tend to use like an external write blocker and then a software write blocker, so I will stack it that way, but that's just because software write blocking is enabled by default anyway on most of the systems I use. Yeah, but if you have an Ultra Dock and you plug anything into it, even if it's a duplicator. Now that being said, if you connect too many devices in through one port, you're going to see performance decreases. So just something to consider. Okay. All right. So thank everyone so much for coming. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for being here with me. Again, let me know if there's any topics you want to see. If you have any questions, reach out to me on Twitter. That's really where I post things about internships and jobs and stuff like that, as well as videos and stuff. That's where the community is. The Digital Forensic Discord server is a great resource. And yeah, just comment on any YouTube videos that I have, and I will try to get to the comments as quickly as I can. If you give me ideas, I'll put them in the rotation, and I can't guarantee that I'm going to get to them immediately, but I will get to them as quickly as possible. So I have quite a few recommendations now that I need to get to. All right, so thank you so much. Wolfgang saying 2 separate processes. I'm not really sure. For imagers, most imagers are already optimized for processors, so you don't need to start 2 separate instances of most modern imaging software. It'll handle processing anyway, but most of the processing that happens whenever you use an imager, like an FTK imager, for example, most of the processing is going to be in compression. So if you use compression on disks, a lot of the time that it takes depends on the compression you use and how fast your computer is at compressing. If you just made a raw disk image, they tend to be actually faster, and they use almost no processing power. They're just using I/O directly. But if you want to compress those disk images, and we usually do, then your CPU really matters for imaging. So I'm not sure what you mean by the 2 separate processes, but if you're thinking about imaging and processing, it almost always comes down to compression, or image compression. Okay, so with that, we're going to get out of here. Thank you so much for the support, and I will post more videos about the hardware soon, so keep an eye out. Let me know if you guys need anything, and thank you so much.